And a very good Monday morning here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and as always, it is good to have you guys coming in and listening and watching to the show, however you are, taking in this content. Obviously, I hope everybody had a good weekend. A lot of good football, a lot of baseball stuff, obviously more so to talk about on this show. Um, but yeah, um, but again, to remind you guys as we start off the show, is make sure to tip or donate to the program and get your comments recognized. Go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Like I always say, it really helps the show. And for bonus coverage materials that are not on this broadcast, go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. And like I said, we got a lot to talk about on today's show. So starting off the show, we'll go through the latest news and headlines around Major League Baseball, talk about some of the teams that clinched their playoff spots. Then in the second segment, one of the bigger headlines from this weekend is Shohei Ohtani will be missing the remainder of the season. So I'll go into more detail with that. Then in the third segment, I'm going to recap all the series from this weekend, go through all the games, and give my thoughts on those. And then in the final segment, I will talk about the updated standings as the wild card race has. There's been kind of a mini seismic shift with some of the wild card teams there, especially in the National League, because I've been talking about that pretty much every single day that I've done the show so far these past couple of weeks. So we'll get into that and touch upon the American League as well. And then that's basically it. But yeah, I had a late night last night. Had an early morning. Had a doctor's appointment this morning. So I've been up, and if I look like I haven't slept, rest assured, we're good. We're ready to go. So with that, let's get right into it. Talking about the latest news and headlines. So on Friday, and I briefly mentioned it on Friday's show, but Friday was Roberto Clemente Day, so all the players were wearing number 21 on the back of their jersey. People were wearing cleats. So it was a good day, a great day for baseball. And I said this, but I think baseball does a good job at honoring their history and honoring great players that have made an impact on the game and have pushed the game forward. And hearing some of the players like Francisco Lindor talking about Roberto Clemente and what he meant to him and what he's meant to the game. It's between that and Jackie Robinson Day, those are days you got to look forward to, and especially seeing some of the star players wearing the jersey numbers on the back. It's really important that baseball continues to maintain that, and so that was good. So that was Friday, and the Yankees were in Pittsburgh for that. So it was a good day for, like I said, baseball does I think when it comes to players that have really impacted the game, they do a good job with that. But yeah, I just wanted to touch upon that because I there was so many other things I was thinking about talking about that I kind of just glossed over it. But yeah, so that happened on Friday, and some of the other things. So the Orioles, they clinched a playoff spot. The Rays clinched a playoff spot, so they're both officially in. And yeah, so it's that AL East race, and we're gonna get into it later on in the show. But it is really heating up, and I who knows what's gonna happen at the end of the year, but. Yeah, but both teams are going to be in the playoffs. The Orioles are going to be in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. And I took a screenshot of this because I saw this on MLB's Instagram. So this was the lineup the last time the Orioles were in the postseason. And this is the 2016 AL wildcard game. So this was the lineup. So Adam Jones was leading off. Hung-Soo Kim was batting second. Manny Machado was batting third. Mark Trumbo was batting fourth, Matt Wieters fifth, Chris Davis sixth, Jonathan Scope batting seventh, Michael Bourne batting 8th, J.J. Hardy batting 9th, and Chris Tillman was on the mound. Yeah, that just shows you how long ago it's been. And Adam Jones was at the game recently. They were honoring him. I think he was there again. Well, no, he's been at the game. I know he was there earlier this year, but they were honoring him, so he was there for that. But yeah, he was, he's one of those players, and a lot of those players that I just listed out, and players I grew up watching, because they honored him, and a bunch of the guys from that team were there. Nick Markakis was there because he threw out the first pitch. Nick Markakis was there. Chris Davis, I believe, was there. So a lot of guys from that team were there, and like I said, those are guys I grew up watching. And now we got this young team with the Orioles that's really good. Young players, Adley Rutschman. You got Gunnar Henderson, who might win. It looks like right now he's the front runner to win American League Rookie of the Year. So they still got young guys coming up. They're trying to get their closer back. He's been throwing some bullpen sessions, and they're hoping that he can come back for the postseason. Felix Bautista. So, it's looking good for the Orioles, and the Rays. They're right there behind them. So it's gonna be a lot of fun down the stretch as we're nearing the towards the postseason. We got 2 weeks left, and the regular season ends on October 1st, and then we take it from there. So, but props to the Orioles. Nobody really expected them to have the season that they ended up having this year. I mean, they, my friends, they took like an over on their wins. I forget what the over-under was, but that hit very easily. But I don't think people expected them to, do what they did this year. And now they look like they might win the division. It's going to be tough between them and the Rays. And I mean, right now they have the best record in the American League, so they got they're going to have home field advantage if they keep this up. So, props to the Orioles and the Rays. They continue to make the postseason. They're a solid team, and we'll see what happens. But so those teams made it over the weekend, and they were both playing each other. That was a big series. And like I said, we'll touch upon that later in the show. The Dodgers, they won the NL West, which I think is kind of no surprise there. But they struggled early on in the season. They got themselves back on track, and now they got another NL West title, and they had a good trade deadline. So and I think that's the biggest competitor with the Braves. I think that's what it most likely is going to come down to. Although, like I've been saying, teams get hot at the right time. It might not even be that matchup, because we saw that last year when they both teams got knocked off by the Padres and the Phillies. Now the Phillies are going to make it, Padres are not. So that was the other thing as well. Dodgers clinched, so they're officially in. Well, they also clinched the division as well. So yeah, they're officially they got their stuff wrapped up. Also, something else that I saw that was interesting. So Talking Baseball posted this on their Facebook, and this is from like sometime last week, but this is the MLB standings if the results of every one-run game was flipped. Now, the most notable differences. So the Cardinals, again the records have changed since then, but the Cardinals would have been 75-70, so they'd have a winning record. The Padres would be 84-62, and that makes. I mean, you look at their run differential is ridiculous. What are the other? The Guardians would be at 500. The Twins' record would be better. The Rays would have 95 wins, which is pretty close. Yankees would have 78. Orioles would have 77. What else? The Braves would have 89, so that really didn't change. The Brewers would be 69-75, and right now, they're in first place. So Dodgers would still have 88 wins. So I just thought that was I thought that was interesting, and that just shows you what a difference one-run games have made. I mean, the Padres, if they didn't have all that, if they were on the winning side of a lot of those games, they'd be in a playoff spot right now. So it just goes to show you how like the margin of error has kind of led to where some of these teams are right now. So, but yeah, I just thought that was something that was interesting as well. So we got a few minutes left in the show. So obviously another big thing as well, and we'll touch upon it in the next segment. We'll go into more depth with that. Is obviously Shohei Ohtani. He's going to miss the rest of the regular season, and we'll go into more detail with that in the next segment because obviously, Shohei Ohtani deserves his own segment because of how great of a player he is and the impact that he's had on the game. So we'll get into that. Also, another thing that was interesting. So in the Astros game yesterday, so there Framber Valdez was throwing to first base to try to get a runner out, and the ball, it was like a bad throw. And what Jose Abreu ended up doing was he threw his glove at the ball so it didn't go into the outfield. And apparently you can't do that. I never knew that. Now the funny thing is, I've played, baseball with my friends. We go to a field and we just have batting practice and we just hit the ball around. And there's been a few times where like the ball is hit to like shortstop, and my friend will throw his glove up in the air to prevent it from going into the outfield. But honestly, the thing is, I never really knew that was a violation because you know what, it hasn't happened. That's something that doesn't really happen. I mean, obviously, if you knock the ball out of someone's glove, yeah, that's a violation. I'm referencing the '04 ALCS when A-Rod did that to Bronson Arroyo against the Red Sox. But yeah, that's just something that I never like. I don't think a lot of people thought of that. Like, oh yeah, I guess yeah, that's a violation. So that's just something that was interesting to come across. But yeah, also Rangers, they've been again, like I've been saying, they've been playing better baseball lately, but now they've lost 3 in a row. So literally after sweeping the Blue Jays, now they're back into not playing good. And the Mariners, they got swept by the Dodgers. That's who the Dodgers clinched the NL West against. And yeah, listen, that was a true test for the Mariners, and they just they just couldn't get it. They couldn't get anything. They got swept. I mean, the game on Saturday was it was like nothing the whole time, and then the Dodgers in extra innings, they ended up winning that game 6-2. So yeah, that was a tough series for the Mariners, and especially for these two teams, they're trying to catch the Astros, and they're not really doing themselves any favors, by not playing well. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all the major news and headlines. Obviously, like I said, I'll touch upon Ohtani. Actually, another thing I just saw when I was watching ESPN before I came on just now. So the Rays, they are going to be playing in a new stadium. It's going to be in 2028, and it was for like they're going to pay. It's like I think it was like $1.2 billion for the stadium. So I think a lot of people will be happy about that because, I have a friend that also lives in Tampa, and he was saw firsthand what Tropicana Field is like, and I don't think he was a big fan of it. I don't think really not a lot of people like Tropicana Field. So this I think is good for the Rays, and I think it's in St. Petersburg. So because I remember there was the talk of them playing half of their games in Canada and half of their games in Florida, and they didn't really get approval for that, and it's just like it was a mess. But so yeah, it looks like the Rays are going to be getting a new stadium. So that was another thing that I saw right before I came on. So just throw that in there. But yeah, that's basically it when it comes to the latest news and headlines around the league. So with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we are going to talk about Shohei Ohtani and him being out for the rest of the season, and kind of go into his future and things like that, which I know I've touched upon before in the past, but we're gonna talk about it in this next segment. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the second segment of today's show, we're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani and the recent news around him. So, over the weekend, it was reported that Ohtani cleared out his locker, and it came out that he is going to miss the rest of the season with his oblique injury. And also, I was reading how they want to try to, get that UCL surgery as soon as possible. So, so then he can, get back to pitching sooner, even though most likely, we'll see what happens, but he's probably not pitching next year. But I saw that it's a different kind of UCL injury than he had. It's in a different spot. I saw, as opposed to the last time he dealt with this injury. So, I think the Angels were saying that Tommy John surgery might not happen. There might be a different procedure that's done with that. So, I guess that's kind of good news. I guess I don't know. I mean, it's still really bad because he's probably not going to pitch next year. But yeah, when because one of my friends I think sent the the article, like a tweet about it in our sports group chat, and yeah, it stinks. It really stinks. I mean, but all we saw was he cleared out his locker, and it just, I mean, obviously, they're gonna shut him down for the rest of the year, but it's just like a very like sour way, for his Angels tenure to end. I don't think he's coming back. He's gonna go somewhere else, and whether it's gonna be on the West Coast with a new team or does he come east remains to be seen. But it's just a very sour way to end the season for Ohtani. And yeah, I just he was having a great season, pitching and hitting wise. He was really doing great, and it just ended like on such a bad note, because I mean, he was on pace to maybe break Judge's home run record. It looked like that was going to happen, and injuries caught up to him, and that was basically it. And now he's out for the year. So Ohtani on the season, he finishes in 23 games. He finishes with a 10-5 record, a 3.14 ERA, 132 innings pitched, 167 strikeouts, and a 1.06 WHIP. And then you go to his hitting stats. I mean, 300 hitter, 44 home runs, 95 RBIs, 20 stolen bases, and a 1066 OPS. And comparing that to his other seasons, last year he hit 34 home runs. So he had 10 more home runs this year, had the same amount of RBIs. His walks went up, strikeouts were down, but batting average was up, OPS was up, on base percentage was up, slugging was up. I mean, he had a great. I mean, he's gonna win MVP. He's still gonna win MVP, because you look at, I mean, his home runs. He's surrounded by National League hitters. You got Matt Olson, you got Alonso, Schwarber, Betts, Acuna, Austin Riley, Soler, Muncy, Ozuna. That's for home runs. Then you look at RBIs. You have Olson, Alonso, Kyle Tucker, Adolis Garcia, Mookie Betts, Muncy, Julio Rodriguez. But I mean, I don't think. I mean, these guys aren't going to win MVP over Ohtani. I don't think. Well, let's look at Kyle Tucker. So Kyle Tucker's got a 105 RBI. He's got 27 home runs, 873 OPS. He's having a very good season. But I mean, Ohtani's going to win MVP. It just stinks, and it really just makes you wonder, where is he going to end up? Because I talked about this in a show a couple weeks ago. It's because when he first came over, he wanted to play on the West Coast because he wanted to be closer to where he's from. He wanted to be closer to Japan. And I mean, things could change. He might, say, hey, listen, I want to go to, wherever's going to give me the best chance to win. Now, there's a lot of there's teams on the West Coast that can do that. The Dodgers, because the Dodgers are definitely going to be a player in all of this because they got rid of a bunch of guys. They got rid of Justin Turner, Trey Turner. They got rid of Bellinger. They let go of a lot of guys to open up payroll for Ohtani, and that might be the favorite. But also like the Mariners, they were gaining some traction in this. So I'm curious to see what ends up happening. I mean, I don't. I mean, the Mets. Listen, the Mets have the money to do it. I don't think the Yankees are a player. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I would be over the moon if it happens. But it's I think right now they're in a position where they can't really do that because of Giancarlo Stanton, him being landlocked at DH. You got a lot of outfielders. You got Ohtani doesn't play the field, but I'm just saying it's just and starting pitching. I mean, Yankees need a starter, and Ohtani is not going to pitch, so it's really just the DH spot that's a problem with the Yankees, which is why I don't think it's going to end up happening unless the Yankees move off of Stanton if they're able to, and they somehow sign him. But I don't. I think with their recent track record, I don't think it's gonna happen. And but the Mets, I think he's got a better chance of going to the Mets than he does to the Yankees, because Steve Cohen doesn't care about the luxury tax and whatnot. If he can get Ohtani, he's gonna try to go out and get him. The Mets, they brought on David Stearns over from the Brewers. So Billy so he's the president of baseball operations, and then you have Epler's still, I guess, going to be the general manager. It seems. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Billy Epler's got to answer to him, I think, if Billy Epler's the guy at GM. But it's gonna be interesting. It's unfortunate because like I talked about, they were like 5 games over. When they announced they weren't going to trade Ohtani. And then everything just kind of fell apart. Ohtani throws that complete game shutout, and he hits 2 home runs in that doubleheader, and the Angels, they're like, we're going to buy, and they got these players. They got Giolito, Grichuk, CJ Cron, and then it just fell apart. Mike Trout comes back for literally 1 game, and then he's gone, and then Ohtani gets hurts his oblique, and now he's out for the year. Now, did the Angels make the right call in terms of, like, I guess, shutting him down? I guess, because you're not playing for anything and you don't want to get him hurt even more. But the other thing is, I mean, he's not going to come back. I would be surprised if he comes back as an Angel. Unless the Angels offer him a contract that he cannot refuse. Even then, it's like, but why do you want to stay there? Mike Trout and Ohtani at one point were the 2 best players in baseball. And the Angels have done nothing with these 2 guys. They haven't accomplished anything. So, I mean, Ohtani won't, I think, go somewhere else. Go to the Dodgers, go to the Mariners. The Mariners are an up-and-coming team last couple years. I think that's where you got to go. The Mets, the Mets, can the Mets turn it around? With the resources that they have, they can definitely do that. Now, the problem, listen, would you rather have Vogelbach DHing again? Or would you rather have, I don't even know, Vogelbach probably really hasn't even played because they have all the young guys up, but would you rather have Ohtani as your DH or somebody else? So the Mets, if they can go out and get him, and on top of that, if Ohtani does come back and pitch, that adds to the Mets rotation. I mean, it's the same. Listen, it's the same thing for anybody, even the Yankees. But I think the Mets have a better chance. The Mets got a better shot at getting Ohtani than, like I said, the Yankees do. So if I'm the Mets, I listen. The Mets need a couple bats to improve this lineup. And Ohtani's a guy that, could definitely solve a lot of those issues. So we'll put it like that. But it just stinks for baseball because you really wanted to see what he was going to do. Like, was he going to get to 60 by By the way, Matt Olson, he hit his 52nd home run, so happy about that because I know I made that mistake and put him hitting 52 when he hit 51. I don't know why that happened, but it did. So, but Ohtani, he was on pace to hit 60. It was gonna get there, and injuries just kind of derailed that, and it sucks to see, because he would have had that coverage that Judge was having when he was chasing 62, Roger Maris's number. So I think Ohtani probably would have gotten to at least 60, but I mean, we'll never know. Listen, he comes back and he's playing as a DH next year. We'll see what he does. A full healthy season, well, as a hitter, not as a pitcher. But it's it remains to be seen. But it it just really is unfortunate that this had to occur. I mean, I think for everybody, I think most people are happy that, except for Angel fans, most people are happy that Ohtani's gonna not be an Angel next year and be somewhere else that has a chance to win. And I'm kind of hoping the same thing for Mike Trout. I think Mike Trout's got to go somewhere else. Whether it's trade, trade him somewhere where he could try to play in the playoffs again, because again, the last time he played was 10 years ago, almost 2014, which is wild. It's wild. One time that he played in the postseason, and it was almost 10 years ago. Yeah, it was a different time back then, for many different reasons, not just from a baseball or sports standpoint, but just from like a life standpoint. Just it was a very different world back then. I was in freshman year of high school, or 8th grade. It was one of the two. It was a time. Actually, yeah, it was. I think it was 9th grade. I was in 9th grade. That's wild. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's just it's a bad situation. The Angels, they could have got a haul for this guy if they traded him, and instead of losing him for nothing. But they wanted to compete. And it just, like, once they made all those trades, that's when everything just fell apart. Like they like I said, they were over 500, and everything just fell apart after that. And then they put a lot of these guys on waivers. I don't think Grichuk didn't get claimed, but it's just that was a disaster. And I think like in the coming weeks, I definitely will go through what the Angels have done over the last 10 years or so. Like go through moves and kind of like what I did with like Chaim Bloom's tenure with the Red Sox, and just kind of evaluating all that, because there's a lot of bad deals in there. And most recently they gave Rendon a big contract, and he had, World Series champ with the Nationals, and he's been awful. He's been terrible. But it's just it stinks, because you really want to see Trout and Ohtani in the playoffs, and you're gonna have to wait another year for that. So yeah, it's just it sucks. It sucks for baseball. It really does. Injury, and for all sports, injuries they really are just terrible. You wish injuries didn't exist. I mean, football just started. We're in week 2, and there's so many injuries. It's just, but it's part of the game. It's part of the game. So yeah, that's basically it with the Ohtani segment. So again, I'll touch upon it in the Patreon video as well when I record that, and that's coming up. So make sure if you subscribe to the Patreon, you'll tune in and hear some more thoughts on that. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, I am going to go over the scores from this past weekend, game recaps from this weekend, and give my thoughts on that. And then that'll bring us into the final segment, which will be talking about the playoff race. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the third segment of today's show, we're going to go over the game recaps from this weekend. So, and I'll get into the playoff race in the next segment, but there was like a lot happened. So we'll start off with Friday night. So we'll get the Yankees and the Pirates out of the way. So the Yankees won 7-5. They scored 4 runs in the ninth inning. So they defeated the Pirates 7-5. And a scary situation in this game. So the Yankees relief pitcher, Anthony Misevich, if I'm pronouncing that right, got drilled in the head by a line drive. And he was taken out of the game on a cart. He actually was like smiling and laughing, but he was in a lot of pain, obviously. Very scary situation. It was weird because I had the game on in here on my TV, and I left the room for like 30 seconds, and I come back, and I see everybody on the infield, kneeling on the ground, and I'm like, what happened? And I knew right away. I'm like, yeah, pitcher got drilled in the head, and it ricocheted off of him and went into the outfield. So that's when you know it was really bad. But, as long as he's okay, that's all that matters. But that was just a very scary situation. And this is a guy that the Yankees just brought in, to pitch, they recently, and this had to happen. So it's been that kind of year for the Yankees. It's just been, it's terrible. But again, as long as he's okay, that's all that matters. So, yeah, Yankees ended up getting the win in that game, so 7-5. Marlins, they defeated the Braves 9-6, so that was a big win for them. So at the time, that brought their record to 76-72. The Rays, they beat the Orioles 7-1, so they took the first 2 games in the series, so that was big. Eflin got the win, and Flaherty got the loss. That was one game that I actually predicted right. I said I think the Rays are going to win. I liked the Rays in the series, but yeah. 7-1. The Blue Jays, they picked up the win against the Red Sox, 3-0. Barrios got the win. Bello got the loss, so that was big for the Blue Jays. Reds defeated the Mets 5-3, so that brought their record to 77-72. The Guardians, all over the Rangers, so like I was talking about, rough weekend for the Rangers. Guardians win 12-3. Twins beat the White Sox 10-2. The Royals beat the Astros 4-2. The Brewers beat the Nationals 5-3. The Phillies beat the Cardinals 5-4. Rockies beat the Giants 3-2. Tigers beat the Angels 11-2. So again, like I mentioned on Friday, their records are almost identical. And when the Angels, swept that doubleheader, Angels were like 54-49, and the Tigers were like 58-69, whatever it was. And it's amazing what a difference a few months makes, or a month and a half, something like that. Diamondbacks got a big win against the Cubs 6-4. Justin Steele took the loss in that game. So that was when I was talking about the guy's last name. It was Fad, and how he had like a 6 ERA entering the game. He had a 1-8 record. Yeah, he actually ended up pitching very well, and Justin Steele got the loss. So who saw that coming? I didn't. But he went 5 1/3, 4 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks, and beat Justin Steele, who's a Cy Young candidate. Padres, they beat the A's 8-3, and then the Dodgers took the first game against the Mariners 6-3. So then we go to Saturday. The Yankees, they beat the Pirates 6-3. Rockies swept the doubleheader of the Giants. So they won 9-5 and then 5-2. I think that's the order in the game. 9-5, 5-2. Yep. Then Blue Jays won in walk-off fashion against the Red Sox 4-3 in 13 innings. Oh, it's Chad Green. Was that Chad Green that picked up the win? 3-0 with the 9 ERA. Was that actually who that was? Let's look. Because I know he signed with the Blue Jays. And in fact, it was Chad Green, because Chad Green had to get Tommy John surgery, so he's back and he's pitching. I did not know that. I thought he was Right. Well, I mean, then again, it's late in the season, so But no, that's good to see Chad Green back out there, even though it's for a division rival. Padres 5-2 over the A's. Marlins all over the Braves on Saturday, 11-5. That was the other thing I forgot to mention. They swept the Braves, which that's huge. That's huge for them. Guardians 2-1 over the Rangers. Orioles 8-0. So they were Glasnow took the loss, so that was a rough start for him. Royals beat the Astros 10-8. Reds defeated the Mets again 3-2. White Sox won 7-6 over the Twins. Brewers 9-5 over the Nationals. Phillies 6-1 over the Cardinals. And then in walk-off fashion, D-backs defeated the Cubs 7-6 in 13 innings. Let's look at who got the walk-off hit here. The walk-off hit was by... So there was actually a review. So Gabriel Moreno singled on a ground ball. Longoria scored. Emmanuel Rivera tied the game, and then Gabriel Moreno singled. So they had to review the play with Longoria scoring. So yeah, Diamondbacks won again. Tigers beat the Angels 5-4 in 10 innings. So they have a better record than the Angels. That's crazy. And then and this was a game I briefly mentioned in the beginning. Dodgers Mariners. It was 0-0 for a while. It was 0-0 until the 10th inning. And then it was 1-1, and then the Dodgers scored 5 in the top of the 11th, and then the Mariners scored 1 in the bottom of the 11th. And the final score 6-2. So that was Saturday. Yankees lost 3-2, so any playoff hopes that they have, that was a tough loss for them. Still talking about them, but they're still in it. Orioles, walk-off fashion, defeat the Rays 5-4. So these teams ended up splitting. So that's good for the Orioles. Blue Jays, especially how the first two games went. Blue Jays, they took care of business with the Red Sox 3-2. So that was big for them. Mets won 8-4 against the Reds. Guardians won 9-2 against the Rangers. Marlins 16-2 over the Braves for the sweep. Yeah, that's Charlie Morton took the loss in that game, so he had a rough start there. Luzardo picked up the win. But yeah, that was a huge series for the Marlins. Then you got the Astros and the Royals. Astros took the final game. Valdez picked up the win. Jordan Lyles picked up the loss. Jordan Lyles, 4-17 with a 6.43 ERA. And I think he's Greinke's there, but he's one of the veterans on the staff, and it's just that's rough. Twins 4-0 over the White Sox. So they took the series 79-71. Their record is at. Brewers lost in 11 innings, 2-1 to the Nationals. Cardinals win 6-5 over the Phillies. Giants were able to pick up a win, 11-10 over the Rockies. So a very high scoring game. They put up 8 runs in the 6th inning. Rockies put up a 5 spot in the bottom of the 6th, and then the Rockies put up a 4 spot in the 9th inning. So Giant fans were definitely freaking out over that, but they were able to pick up the win. Tigers again beat the Angels, so they improved their record to 70-79. Angels are 68-82. I know they're gonna end up being close to a 90-loss team, and this is after being a contender. Going out and trading people and trying to be a contender. It's bad. That is really bad. So Padres again beat the A's 10-1, so 72-78 on the season. Again, just can't say enough how disappointing the Padres have been this year. Dodgers 6-1 over the Mariners. So that was I think a big test for the Mariners, and it just that just shows you that the Dodgers, or how elite the Dodgers are. And then the Diamondbacks, they beat the Cubs to complete the sweep, 6-2 over the Cubs. But yeah, rough weekend for the Cubs, and this is what I will go into in the next segment, going over the wild card race. But the Cubs, man, they have really been struggling as of late. And listen, I kept saying how they were a lock to make the playoffs, but right now right now right now they have the third wild card spot. The Diamondbacks surpassed them in the wild card race. So, yeah, it's not looking good right now for the Cubs. So hopefully, for Cub fans, they're able to figure it out and get their act together. But yeah, that was rough. Diamondbacks have been playing better as of late. And that was a team that I, had on the outside looking in, another team. And since then, yeah, it's between them and the Rangers. But now the Rangers got swept, so now they're, but it's just, but that's how crazy, and I can't say it enough, how crazy it's been. You have teams just, like, they're hot, they're cold, there's different teams, like, taking over the spots in the wild card. It's going to be like that to the very end. And, yeah, it's, it's exciting. Really, it's all going to come down to tiebreakers, really. So, it's going to be a lot of fun towards the end, and I keep saying that, but it's true. I people have their complaints, I would say, with the expanded playoffs, because you have teams that make it that shouldn't make it, and yeah, that's going to happen. And it's like that with the NFL too, with adding the extra seed. But it does make it exciting when you have a lot of teams that are, like, multiple teams fighting for a spot, because you never really had that. You didn't have that back in the day, and now you do. So I think that's one of the reasons why teams you expand the playoffs. The NBA did it with the play-in tournament too. It's just you're trying to add teams because you want to have more games. But in some ways it's a good thing, some ways it's a bad thing, because you got teams that make it that might not deserve to be in it. So, but yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a baseball fan, and like I said, we got 2 weeks left. Season ends on October 1st, and then that will determine who's in and who's not, and then the wild card series start, and yeah, then we're off and running, and it's gonna be here before you know it. This was probably one of the faster seasons that I can ever remember. This season flew by, and yeah, it's almost that time again. And it's going to be interesting because there's some teams that have been in the playoffs that will not be in it this year, and I'm referencing the team that you see plastered all over my wall in the background. But it will it's gonna be a lot of fun, and paying close attention to those games. Because I'm gonna have to, and see if the favorites get knocked off. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's pretty much all the scores from this weekend. And like I said, in the next segment, we are going to go over the current standings, because there's a lot to unpack with that. So before we go to break, again, just want to remind you guys. To tip or to donate to the program and get your comments recognized, it's on the bottom, but go to streamelements.com/gsmcsports./tip, and really helps the show. And for bonus coverage, materials that are not on this broadcast, go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and I will put up the Patreon graphic here. So that's where that's what you would search up when you are looking for us. And this goes for all the podcasts, the college football, the basketball podcast, and the fantasy football podcast. So make sure, obviously, also to go check those out as well. Austin and Kashan do a great job with those shows as well. And Kashan was in the chat on Friday asking me some questions, so I really appreciated that. And I made sure to return the favor and do the same thing. But yeah, those are the familiar faces when it comes to that. It's us three. So yeah, make sure to go check that out. So with that, we will take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to take a look at the current playoff picture as it currently stands, the current standings and all that. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the final segment of today's show, we are going to talk about the current playoff picture, where the standings are, because a lot happened this weekend. Things changed. And let's get right into that. So let's go take a look at. So I have the graphics up for today. So right now we look at the American League and how it currently stands. So right now you have the Rays at the top. Then you got the Blue Jays at 83 and 67, and then you got the Rangers, who are a half game back. And it's just kind of funny, and just double checking just to make sure I have audio, and I do, which is good, because again, I still get nervous when I'm going to use graphics, because of when I did the private live stream, and I didn't realize that the volume was all the way down. Because that's how the software was. That's how the software was set when I put in new pictures, and I ended up with no audio, so I had to cut that out of. But thankfully, that hasn't happened on here. I did experience some issues with recording the Patreon last week, but I was able to work around that. But yeah, so but that was camera issues actually. Not even audio, but yeah. So again, another tangent going off of, but So you look at the wild card standings for the American League. So that's what you got right there, and then also so behind those teams. So right now the Mariners are on the outside looking in. That's because they had a rough weekend against the Dodgers. So they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. Right now they are currently 1 game out. So it's not like it's insurmountable, but. They definitely had a rough weekend, but yeah, this is another. Now it's with less teams, but this is going to be kind of a revolving door, as well, where you're going to have the Blue Jays, the Rangers, and the Mariners just constantly flip flopping. When it comes to those playoffs, those 2 wild card spots. The Yankees are 6.5 games back, so the teams that are still like mathematically in it, you have the Tigers, but. Again, this is mathematically. Tigers, Guardians, Red Sox, and Yankees. Yankees are 6.5 games back. Red Sox are 8.5. Guardians are 10.5. Tigers are 12. But focusing on the 3 teams that you see on the screen and the Mariners, again, it's cut off, but that's what we're focusing on is those teams. So that's what's going on in the American League wild card. The Mariners and the Rangers do play each other again, I believe, and that's going to be really important and something to pay close attention to. So yeah, that's the American League wild card. Then you have the National League wild card. Now this is what I was talking about when I said there's been a seismic shift, because the Cubs have been in that second spot for a while. All of a sudden now, they get swept by the Diamondbacks, and they're actually, and let me double check. They are 2-10 in their last 10 games, and they've lost 5 in a row now. Right now they're tied, and again they're cut off. No disrespect to them, but again I'm still trying to eventually I'll figure it out where I can fit it, but this is the best I can do right now. But the Marlins right now are tied with the Cubs right now for this last wild card spot. Now, Cubs are a half game back. Phillies better be careful, otherwise Diamondbacks could maybe surpass them if they keep playing well. And the Phillies are 4-6 in their last 10 games. But you got the Marlins are tied with the Cubs for that last wild card spot. Reds are a half game back. Giants are 2 games back. And I kept saying, like, oh yeah, the Cubs and the Phillies, they're locked. It's really just all about that third wild card spot. Nope. Cubs could find themselves on the outside looking in, which I thought the Cubs were fine, but I guess not. They've really been struggling. So if you're a Cubs fan and you come across this, I'd like to know why is this happening right now? Pitching struggling, like what? I mean, it seems like it. I mean, Justin Steele took the loss, but like what Like, what's been like the main issue with the Cubs? Because I genuinely would like to know why. Like, this is, because they've had this great stretch, and now all of a sudden they're not playing good right now. And the Diamondbacks are playing great. They're playing great because they heard me. They're like, oh, Kenneth said that we're not making the playoffs this year, so let's go ahead and prove him wrong. That's why I don't like making predictions. I say like, oh, the Rangers might be the team that's on the outside looking in. I like either the Reds or the Marlins to make it. Diamondbacks are in right now. Marlins are tied for that third spot. But yeah, it is chaotic. It is chaotic what this wild card in both leagues. I mean, the National League is crazier, but both. I mean, it's really going to be crazy down the stretch. So then we'll focus on the divisional races. So right now, the Rays and the Orioles, they split that 4-game series over the weekend. So the Rays right now are 2 games back of the Orioles. Right now, the Orioles' magic number is 11. Blue Jays are 10.5 games back, but they're not going to catch them. But yeah, that's going to come down to the wire. Actually, let's look at the Orioles' remaining schedule here. So they got Houston for 3, Cleveland for 4. These are away games, so they got a 7-game road trip. Then they're home for Washington, 2 games against Washington, and then 4 against Boston. Yeah, that road trip is, especially against the Astros, that's going to be tough. Well, the Astros are going to be tough. The Guardians, yeah, I mean it's going to be close. And then let's look at the Rays schedule here. So they have 3 games against the Angels, which that they should do well. 3 games against the Blue Jays, which could be a little dicey. 2 against the Red Sox in Fenway, and then 3 in Toronto against the Blue Jays to close out the year. So right now, I kind of like the Orioles' schedule better, slightly. I mean, because the 6 games against Toronto is going to be tough. The Orioles should be able to handle the Guardians, Boston, but we're just going to have to wait and see. So that's the AL East. Then you look at the Central. Twins' magic number right now is 6. They're eventually going to get it at some point later this week, maybe. Right now, the AL West, chaotic division. Astros are 84-66. Right now, they're a game and a half up on the Rangers, and the Mariners are 2.5 games back. So right now, the Astros' magic number is 12. But I think they're gonna. I think the Astros are gonna take it, but barring a collapse. Braves, they clinched the NL East, so we touched upon that. And and they're most likely going to get home field. Dodgers can still catch them, but it's it's going to be kind of tough at this point. The Brewers right now 6.5 games up on the Cubs. So we talked about that final series being a huge series that could determine that division. Right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Right now, the Brewers, their magic number is 7 right now. So it looks like they're gonna take the division, and it would have been a lot of fun. But now the Cubs might still need that series at the end for the wild card. So, but the Brewers might have that division all wrapped up. Dodgers, they clinched the NL West, so they're all good, which you kind of figured was going to happen. I mean, I did a parlay with the Padres winning the division, and that didn't happen. It didn't happen, which is disappointing. I almost said depressing. It's not really depressing. It's disappointing. But yeah, that's basically the updated standings, current playoff picture as presently constructed, and it's just gonna keep changing. It's gonna keep changing. So we'll be talking about it up until basically October 1st when the season ends. It's basically going to be a part of the show every single day until we get to that point. So, but yeah, this is actually the first full week for me doing shows live, not private. Streams are public. So, and hopefully you guys, join the streams and leave comments and, give me your thoughts on what's going on in the season. Any questions that you may have for me, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I want to answer as much comments as I possibly can. So, but yeah, this is the first full week of shows for me because Monday I didn't do a show because I was in Massachusetts for my cousin's wedding. So did shows Tuesday through Friday. Got the full week, and that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. And I look forward to it. Started this at the right time because playoffs are going to be here before you know it. So I'm really looking forward to it. And today's only Monday, but the weeks, they go so fast. And I mentioned this before. We started out doing 30-minute shows, then 45, and then you get to an hour, and it still goes really fast. And and today, just talk about today on its own. Today's going to be a long day for me. So this is the second part of my day, and then later tonight is the third. Gonna be in New York City again. But the football game tonight, there's two of them. Monday Night Football doubleheader. So it's gonna be a late night. It's gonna be a long day, but we're doing good. We're doing good, and I was able to keep myself awake because I had an early morning, So, but yeah, that's basically the show for today. Touched upon a lot. Basically what we normally do, the headlines and scores, recaps, standings, and the Ohtani stuff is a big deal. Tomorrow it's going to be the same thing. We'll touch upon some other stuff. I don't have the show planned out entirely for tomorrow, but right now the structure of the show is kind of the same. Just news that comes out. The recaps, the standings, and the thing is with like the playoffs, everything is always changing, so that's why it's important to stay on top of that, because it might be one way one night and then be different the next. I mean, you see how the weekend is. I mean, now the Diamondbacks are in the second wild card spot. So, so that's basically kind of the structure of the show. And then you got like a segment dedicated to one particular topic. So, but obviously in the coming weeks, it's going to be a lot different in the coming months, because, you're going to there's going to be no games. I mean, the season's going to be over and there's going to be like, what do I talk about? So, we got a lot of planning to do, but we got a while. We still got the whole month of the postseason. So once we cross that bridge, when we get there, we'll figure it out. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. I thank you guys for watching, for listening, however you are taking in this content. I appreciate it. And we'll be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 12 o'clock. And then obviously I'm going to go and record the Patreon as well. So I thank you for thank you for watching, for joining the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, please subscribe and leave a favorable comment. We appreciate it. And once again, for exclusive content, visit our Patreon. And I went over that a couple times over the course of the show. And then stay connected with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So, with that being said, until next time, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off. Have a good day. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.